clean your blending stomp, take your sandpaper, either a sandpaper block or a piece of sandpaper, and you're basically going to rub the blending stomp across the sandpaper, give it a quarter of a turn, keep going in the same direction. You don't want to be going back and forth like that because it will wreck your blending stomp. You want to simply rub a quarter of a turn and always away from yourself, or in the same direction anyways, so that you don't wreck the blending stomp, and until it comes off clean. So how do we know if it's clean? Take it over to your paper. Oh, looks like there's a little bit left on there. I need to maybe keep cleaning, so I'm gonna go back to my sandpaper. And it will still look a little bit dirty in the end. As long as there's nothing coming off on the paper, then you know it's good to go. And you can go ahead and shade your drawing. See, now nothing is really coming off. It's clean. We can move on to shading something else. The first thing we're going to learn to do is to draw and shade a sphere. Now, a lot of people say, I can't draw a circle. So the first thing you're going to do is just draw yourself a letter C. And then to make it look like a perfect circle, just draw a backwards C in order to connect it. And bam! Now, one of the things that you need to know about shading is that people who shade usually hold their pencil on the side with one finger on top, and then shade with your hand laying flat versus holding your pencil straight up and down. So it's going to look more like this as opposed to scribbly scratchy. Okay, do you see the difference? So we'll practice shading in this sphere in a circular motion, because when you shade something that's circular, you need to pretend that your pencil is almost going around the shape versus straight across. What would happen if we shaded something straight across instead of in the shape that it actually was? So first of all, I choose a light source. So I'm going to pretend that the sun is shining from here, so I know where to put the shadows. So if the sun is over here, then my shadows are going to be on the opposite side. So I know that the darkest shadows or values need to be on the right hand side of this sphere. So I'm going to start shading by holding my pencil just like we talked about. And to get darker shading, I need to press obviously a little bit harder, and I'll work my way up and around the edge of the circle until I get to the other side. Notice how I'm shading kind of like in the shape of a C versus shading straight across. You can see that as I get close to where the sun is shining on my sphere, I'm hardly laying down any graphite at all. So at the very top, I'm probably not really going to have much of anything. And then you'll notice there's a really dark line here, and in the real world, when you see a shape, you don't see a dark line around it. So we have to take our white vinyl eraser, and we need to lighten up that edge so that it looks right. Which I pressed quite dark, quite hard. And then I'll continue adding a little bit more value in here. The next step would be to take our blending stomp, which I gave you, which looks like this. It's basically a rolled up piece of paper. Hold it the same way that you did when you were holding your pencil to shade. And then what this is going to do is to take your drawing to the next level. It's going to turn it into a wow drawing versus just a meh drawing. So we're going to start, and I'm going to actually start on this side where it's lighter, because I don't want to transfer really dark values where I want my sphere to be the lightest. So I'm just going to drag a little bit of graphite up here, and you'll start to see how it just changes the whole appearance of my sphere, and it'll start to make it look realistic. Now, not all drawings are super high realism, but for us to learn how to shade, we're just going to start with trying to make it look like a sphere that actually pops off the page versus a flat, maybe elementary school style sphere where you colored with your pencil crayons or your crayons straight across, and it ended up looking kind of flat and cartoony. So can you see how this is changing in front of our eyes here? And the next thing I would do is clean up my edges, and then I need to make a shadow because anytime the sun shines on something, it makes a shadow. And the shadow is going to be over here. So I'm rubbing my blending stomp to make a little bit of an outline, but you're welcome to take your pencil and do that. So we're going to make, it's not going to be a circle because a circle doesn't cast a circle shape, it casts an oval shadow. So something more like this, where it's going to be. And notice I've changed the way I'm holding my pencil just because I'm shading a tiny little area. So that's okay to hold your pencil this way versus on its side. The key to being good at shading though is to basically go nice and slow and try to get a wide range of light, medium, and dark values while you're shading. And then I'll just blend that. And I'll take my eraser and I'm going to clean up the edges to make my sphere look more pro. And it's okay to turn your page, whatever's more comfortable. If you're right or left-handed, turn the paper to make it work for you instead of against you. It's going to make drawing a little bit more comfortable. Some of the extra tools that I have in the art room include sandpaper, a kneadable eraser, and some blending stomps. Now when you come to class, I will let you use or give you a little chunk of this kneadable eraser. And it's really cool because you can actually take off little parts of the eraser to try and erase areas by dabbing them instead of erasing straight across with a white vinyl eraser and kind of wrecking your whole drawing. So say you drew an eyeball and you want the little juicy part, like the shiny part in an eyeball to show up, you would take a little piece of kneadable eraser and you would just dab in that one little area, ball it up in a little ball, and then when you dab it, it will leave a little white spot. It'll actually pick up the graphite or your pencil from the actual paper, which is pretty cool. And then the blending stomp, which I've been talking about a couple times here, is basically just the rolled up pieces of paper that make your shading so much better. So you want to clean those before you choose to blend a new area so you don't wreck really lightly shaded areas. So as I was saying with the kneadable eraser, you simply tear off a chunk, and I'll just kind of show you how you can dab and the graphite comes off. So ever so slightly, so I can actually make my sphere a little bit better. Looks a little bit darker on this side, so I just take my kneadable eraser and I can just kind of dab and make it look a little bit more even where my shading was a little bit off. And pretend this was an eyeball and I wanted a shiny spot right there. Well, I can just dab right there and see how it removes just part of it. There's other tools you can use as well. Liquid masking fluid if you want something to stay crisp white like your paper, but we won't be using that for your first drawing assignment. It's more something that you might use as you get more advanced along the way.